Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 617. Today we're going to take a look at Welcome to Centerville. This is a new game coming out from GMT Games right about now, designed by Chad Jensen, who also has designed Combat Commander and Urban Sprawl, among other things. And you could kind of think of this as Urban Sprawl, the dice game. However, I know Urban Sprawl was very, very divisive. Almost as divisive as The Last Jedi, but this has some similarities, but the things that people did not like about Urban Sprawl, and I'm one that loves Urban Sprawl, you're not going to find that here. So there's not going to be a lot of chaotic events and things like that. There are some definite similarities though. There's only like 4 disasters that are possible, things like that. But this is basically Urban Sprawl, the dice game. It's got a Yahtzee kind of style mechanic, but it has tons of different kind of ways to score. You can build area control in the city. If you're not familiar with Urban Sprawl, I should probably start off before I get into it. It's kind of like a Sim City vibe to it. It doesn't really play out exactly like that, but you're kind of vying for different kind of political offices and setting up different neighborhoods and engaging in kind of city management in a few different ways. And this has a few disasters that you have to keep in mind, not a ton, but it's kind of a Yahtzee SimCity game, if I could be very glib and short about it. But let's take a look at how the mechanics work, and then I'll tell you what I think about it. Okay, I've got everything here set up for a 3-player game. You can see a couple of things here about the board. You've got a victory point track going around like that. Now you've got 2 victory point markers for each player color. You've got wealth and prestige. At the end of the game, whichever is lower, let's say we have 33 wealth and 28 prestige, our final score is going to be 28. So you want to try to build up both of these sort of evenly, basically. You don't want to have one hanging out too low. Now the other thing to note about the board here is we have these vocation tiles here, and these are going to come out at the beginning of each player's turn if there is any empty spaces in there. So you can take some actions to collect these, and I'll explain what they do. Now you can see there's different numbers here. Let's say 5 and 6 has been taken. Comes to my turn, I draw 2 more out of the bag to fill them up, and let's see what we get here. We get a 4 and a 4. Oh, lo and behold. So what you're going to do though is you're going to rearrange these tiles here so it goes from highest to lowest. And the numbers on here are significant because there's actually only 1 energy tile, and there's 4 tourism tiles, of which we've drawn 3, and there's 9 retail tiles. And each player has a player mat here, like so. This is basically all the rules of the game. I know it looks really super busy and complicated, but that's it. That's the rules of the game on the 1 page. But we have these little spots here to keep track of the different vocation tokens that you can see. So there's 1 energy all the way up to 9 retail, 8 service, 7 of the arts, and so on. So always going to replenish that to start your turn if there's any empty spaces. Now, as you move along through the game here, you've got here these disaster tiles, and certain things players are going to do are going to trigger these being added to this bag. So the first player to move one of their point scoring markers up here is going to take the disaster tile without looking at it. These are all shuffled up and put face down. This is going to add to the bag, and then if you do draw a disaster tile here, you're going to resolve the disaster, flip it over. It's going to do something to basically everybody. There are ways that you can protect yourself, and then you'll keep drawing and then take your turn. Now the other part of the board here is the kind of the main city area, and you can see it's kind of divided up in these different districts here. You've got a residential district, purple. You've got sort of a commerce and areas here and some industrial stuff there. So different colored dice and things that you're going to roll are going to interact with different parts of the board, and you're going to be placing your cubes out here trying to get control of these, and I'll explain that in a minute. Now the next part of that is you also have this kind of park area and these outer areas here that require trees or park benches to be rolled, and then these other spots over here that you can get into. These are sort of like the suburbs outside the main city, and then there's kind of this level of environmental or green track basically here that you're trying to get up. So all these are going to kind of interact together, and then finally we have over here the offices, like so. And you're trying to get your cubes into these different offices and take special actions and keep control of them. You got like the mayor's office, urban planning, and so on. And then you've got like a status track and things up here, which I'll talk about. Now, all of this is going to be controlled by rolling dice on your turn. So you're the first player, you get all the dice here and you roll them. The first thing you're going to do after you roll your dice is actually take and put any hourglasses on this time track. Now in a 3-player game, the time marker is going to start here, and then after you resolve all the dice actions, you resolve a little kind of tiny action here with the hourglasses, or maybe you have more than one hourglass here, like so. The most you can have is 2, and then you'll take kind of 2 little special sort of compensation actions, and then move the track down that many spaces. Now once this moves down to any of these 2 final spaces here, you're going to do a scoring based on where your cubes at and stuff are on the board. Then you're going to do some reset stuff, move this back up to the top, keep taking actions in player order, and then basically the game will end once this gets down here for the 3rd time. You have a 3rd scoring, and then you do kind of a final scoring after that. So that's the course of the game. Now, what can you do with all of these different dice here? So let's kind of walk through again the left side of the board to the right side, and that gives you a good sense of what you're supposed to be doing. So this first area here, you're trying to look for these little education symbols here, these graduation hats. And so let's say on our turn we'd roll these dice and we had the 2 hats. So then at that point, once you stop rolling dice, and you can normally roll up to 3 times. You roll, set aside any of these hourglass tokens, choose any dice that are left, roll them again, then you can do it finally a 3rd time. However, if on an earlier turn you had spent, you can see down here, 4 of these education symbols, you can take the media tile, which will come in handy at the end of the game, which I'll explain. But if you have control of this media tile, then you can take and make a 4th roll with your dice. Now if somebody on a later turn comes and spends the 4 hats, then they can take this from you, and then again on future turns you can make a 4th roll. Otherwise, you're going to spend these hats to get these different tiles. You can see this one up here is always going to cost 1. If you want any of the 2 down here, it's going to cost you 2 hats, and then 3 hats for any of these down here. So because as you draw them, like I showed you earlier, the lower rarity ones, or the higher rarity ones, are going to drop down to the bottom. The ones with the higher number are going to kind of float to the top. So it's always going to be more expensive to get these very hard to find vocation tiles. So that's the thing you can do with the hats. Now the next thing you might do is actually start to place cubes out into these various districts and residential neighborhoods and so on. And the way that you get these cubes out is you're trying to roll these different icons. So here the blue dice will always have this icon, the red dice will always have some of these icons on it, but you can always use them in conjunction with each other. So let's say I ended up with these 2 here, like so. In this case I've got 2 options. Let's say I'm the gray player here. I can build a level 1 industrial area or a level 1 red area. So you can see around the board here, see there's a 1. So the first area around the park is level 1. And then level 2 kind of goes around that way. And then level 3 goes all the way around. So I could build here a level 1 red, because there's still some space there. And then a level 1 blue, like so. However, I could also build a level 2 blue, because I spend 2 of these building icons here, like that. Just one of these has to match the color, or instead I could build a level 2 red. As long as I have a building icon, I can build high up like so. I can build, let's see, like this. This would be the yellow one here. Now I can build a level 3 in any of these colors, or I could build a level 2 blue, because I'm going to spend these 2, and then I can build a level 1 red, like that. So they're interchangeable. It's just that one of the dice has to match the color where you're building. That's also worth noting at this point that there are also wilds like that. Now these aren't really wilds. What these do will copy another dice that you already rolled. So in this case, this is a tricky thing that you can do. Let's say I rolled this and I was going to spend these dice. So maybe I can build a level 2 blue. Fine, do that. And then I have this one, and I'm going to go ahead, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and copy that. So this now becomes this dice. It completely becomes that die. So this is a blue wrench. So now I could build another level 2 blue if I really wanted to double down on this area, because it's copying this, and I can use this other building icon with that. Or you might actually use all 4 of these as buildings, but I'll get to that in a minute. But this is generally how you come and get cubes out here. Now the other thing you can do out here is you can spend 4 trees, like so. You can see you can roll the trees on most of these dice, and you can put a cube in any spot. It doesn't matter the color or anything like that. You can choose these, and you can never have these taken. You can actually have these spots taken from you, which I'll talk about in a minute. That's kind of generally how you get these out here, and these are basically worth a value of 4. The other ones are worth 1, 2, and 3 depending on which level you're in. Now the other thing you can do is you can actually roll these park benches like so. This is very difficult to roll because there's only a couple of these in the game. You're going to end up needing to have a wild there. But if you ever have 3, as you can see, park benches, then you can throw a cube in here, and this acts as having a level 1 in all of the different areas there. So it gives you +1, and this is all going to come into play when we score. But that's the other thing you can do here. Now the other thing you can do with tree icons is you can put one of your cubes out in this area like so. So you can see if you put 3 trees here or here, you can put a guy there, and this is either going to help you score prestige or money, and that's what these different regions are also going to do. You can see these are money regions and these are prestige regions. So these are another way to help you do that. Now next we can take a look at the offices here, and you can see there's a safe icon there, and what you're looking for here is check marks. So in this case, what you're trying to do is get a foothold in these offices. Now you need at least 2 to get in there. So in this case I rolled let's say a black and a red check mark. So I have to match this color. So there's the black one, and then you can have any number there, and then you've got the red one down here. So I need at least 2 to get in there. You need at least 2 check marks to get in there, but let's say yellow was in here and then blue comes along, they need 3 to get in there. So excuse me, not blue, gray comes along, and he's going to bump them out, and then these will go back to the yellow player. Now you can overshoot if you want. If you had like 4 and you really wanted to kind of just sort of lock it in so nobody knocks you out of there, then you can do that. But again, you have to at least match the color. So now we've got a yellow here, we could have gone up here as well. Now when you go in here and you take control of that, and you can even take control of it from yourself, let's say yellow was in here and then they came in again and got a yellow and they got 3, they can even knock themselves out, so to speak, and then add 3. You get to take one of these special actions like so. So you can move up the status track. You can actually take another turn, but you don't get to use the green die on your turn when you do that. So as soon as you come in there, you get that action. If you come in here, you get the safe tile. This is the police and fire department. Now if somebody else comes in there and knocks you out of it, they'll take the safe tile from you. And what that means is when disaster comes up, then you're immune to it. So that's pretty important. This one is you will score, or excuse me, you'll increase the value of one of your buildings. So you just go from like level 1 to level 2 or whatever, wherever you want to do that. And then here you're going to score again wealth or prestige equal to the highest value building. So let's say yellow's down here, they've got the level 4 because they got the 4 in there. So they could get either 4 wealth, moving their wealth marker up, or 4 prestige on the track based on you know, which of these 2 offices they took. And you also want to have cubes in here for sort of control of multiple different offices at the end of the round. Now the other thing you can do, you can see if you have 4 of these vote markers, like maybe in this example we had earlier, instead of going into an office, you might want to take one of these master tiles. Now there's 4 of these, each for the different buildings, and once you take them, you've got it. You've always got to take them out of here. Once you've got it, you got it. So in this case, let's say I had the master of real estate. In this case, then every turn before I roll, I can take and set the purple die to whatever I want, and then I can roll. So this is a really good thing to get very early on in the game. Of course, it's very difficult because you need 4 check marks, but that's one thing you can do with 4 check marks. Now the other thing you can do here is different things will move you up and down the status track. And if you ever spend 4 of these building icons, so again, these guys here that are meant for building buildings, if you spend 4 of these or any wilds here, then you can flip your status token of your color, and that's going to beef up significantly the amount of scoring you're going to get in the scoring round. Now the other thing that the status track does, if you look at like here's the mayor, that shoots you up the status track. Other things you can do will bump you up the status track as well. Now as soon as you're knocked out of first place, no matter who knocks you out or how, because you got knocked out, you get a favor tile, and this allows you to do little bonus cool actions with your dice. So let's talk about those. But first, you do want to be at the top because you want to get knocked out, but then you want to get back in because you're scoring, you get a little kind of scoring bonus here based on your status. So you're always kind of trying to kick each other out, which is kicking each other favors, which gives you really cool things you can do. So let's talk about the favors. So here we kind of blew by the bridge earlier. If you spend again the 3 trees there and you spend a favor, then you can move into here. Now typically you can't knock other people out of spaces, but in this particular case you can. So if you were gray and you came along and you spent your 3 trees and a favor, then you can knock them out. So there's a lot of vying for that, and this is actually going to allow you to score wealth and prestige, which I'll talk about when we get to scoring. Now if you do 3 hats and you also spend a favor, instead of taking a tile out of here, you can actually take it from another player. So if another player gets that soul energy tile, if you spend these along with a favor, then you can take it from them instead of what may be here. The next thing you can do is you can actually kick somebody out of a spot. Let's say I had the 1 purple building contract icon there, and I was white, and there's nowhere for me to go because these are all level 1s. I don't have a level 2. If I spent a favor, then I can bump somebody out of there and then get that spot. So normally you can't be bumped out, but if you spend a favor, you can. And the last thing you can do with a favor tile is, instead of besting somebody by 1, so we've got 3 yellow here, then if you spend a favor and you have of course 3 of the check marks, all you have to do is tie them and then bump them out. And again, you need a favor tile to do that. So I think that's all the dice actions that you can do. Now once you take all the rest of your actions and you start to move down this track here, every hourglass that you spend, you can do one of 3 things. You can either move up 1 space on the status track, or you can choose to either move up 1 prestige or 1 wealth. So once again, once you get down here, you're going to trigger scoring, and let's take a look at that now. So what you're going to do is you're going to score, first of all, these different areas. Now you can see here, these 2 areas here are going to give you wealth points. These 2 are going to give you prestige points. So if we look at this one here, we can say, okay, yellow has 4, white has 1, and gray has 3. So in this case, yellow has the most, so they're going to get +6. In this case, it's wealth. Over here, since they're the only one there, they're going to get +6 prestige. Now whoever has the least, in this case it's white, with 1, they're going to lose 3 wealth. In this case over here, since white and gray aren't in here and they both have the least, they're both going to lose 3. So if you're tied for the lead, let's say gray had another one in here and they had 4 as well as yellow, they would both get +6. And the same thing happens up here. Now the other thing to keep in mind here, oh oops, I forgot, yellow's also got a +1 here in all of these different areas. So even in this case, gray wouldn't be tied because it'd be 4 + 1, which is 5, and in this case gray has 1 + 1 + 2. And yellow again of course has 2 over here. So you score all of those and then move everybody up equal to the amount of either wealth on this side or prestige on that side. Now over here on the river, you're going to score either prestige on the bottom or wealth, and that's going to be equal to, if we scan up here, wherever you're at on the green track, because remember you can spend these trees here just to move up this track, which I don't think I said. But yeah, you can do that. You can spend the green to move up there. So you want to do that because in this case, let's say gray's up here, they have 1 multiplier, and then white has 4 and yellow has 5. If we go down here, you're going to score, in this case white had 4, so they're going to go up 4 prestige. Gray's going to go up 1 of each because they're on the bridge, and then yellow's going to go up, in this case 5 money. And then you're going to shove these over like so. You just shove them, go down the track like so, and then shove them up to the farthest right one that you want, because at the end of the game you're going to get a higher bonus. And so the bridge is going to go over here. It's really good during the game, but once you get in there it's not worth too much, but it's going to score both wealth and prestige. And then this one will go down here. I'll talk about the end game scoring in a second. And then you're going to score the different offices here. So let's say we had, I don't know, like this, and let's say yellow was in another one like that, and gray wasn't in any of these. So you can see yellow has 3 offices, white has 1, and gray has nothing. Well, on your player sheet here, there's a little bit of a chart there. So you can see if you have 0 offices, you lose 3 of both wealth and prestige. In this case, yellow has 3 offices there, so they're going to get 7 of both. So that's pretty important. And then we're going to take a look at here, the status track, which is up here. So we can see white's in first, yellow is in second, but remember they flipped theirs because they spent the 4 building contracts. And then we're going to look at this here. Whoops, there we go. So in this case, white is first, but they're only on 1 star, so they get 4 points. Now, yellow is in second, but they have 2 stars, so they're going to get 4 points. If they're in first, they would get 8. In this case, gray, they're at 1 star, so we're going to look on the left here. They get 1 point, and this is in both wealth and prestige. Now you can do that 3 times. You're going to score all that stuff here, the areas here, over here, and then the status and the offices. And then the other thing you score at the end of the game is you're going to score this amount of either wealth on the top or prestige at the bottom. So you can see here 4. So in this case, 4 white would get 4 prestige. If they had a second building like that, they would get 8 prestige because 4 plus 4. And then whoever's here in the bridge is going to get 1 for that there. So you get a little bit of a bonus there on top of that round of scoring. And then you're going to look over here and look at all of the different vocation tiles that you've been collecting throughout the game. And then whoever has the media tile is going to say this media tile is any of these tiles. It could be a level 1 energy, it could be the level 4 tourism, or whatever. They can just pick whatever they want. And what you're trying to do is score them in a few different ways. So here, you're going to look at all the different ones you have. So you're going to try to collect a complete variety of those. And if you get all 9 of them, you get 36 prestige. Let's say just 5 different ones, you get 10. And then you're going to look at all the sets you have of the same ones. So for each set of 3 of a kind, you get 5 wealth in that case. If you somehow collected all 9, and the only one you can collect 9 of is the retail, because that's the only one there is 9 of, you would get, in this case, 35 wealth. So you go ahead and add that. And then at the end of the game, of course, you're going to go ahead and get points basically equal to whatever wealth or prestige was at its lowest. Now the other thing you're going to do is each player is going to get one of these little legacy tiles at the start of the game, and this gives you a little bit of an extra bonus point, but this happens for everybody. So just one example is whoever has the highest, in this case of the environmental track, is going to get +6 and then -3 in both. And then this one is the most cubes in this area here, not the highest points like we added. So that's just, they have a little extra kind of hidden bonuses there. And so you kind of want to watch players and where they're going. And I think the only thing I haven't talked about these disasters, let's see here. Like this one here is everybody loses 4 spaces on the green belt. I showed you another one earlier. This is everybody loses 1 political office. So you just clear all your cubes off of there. Again, whoever has this is safe from whenever that disaster is drawn. Oh, and I should say, once you score everything in the offices, you're going to clear all these off except for 1 cube. So that player is going to control it for the time being, but it's going to be very susceptible to being taken over. And that's pretty much the whole game. Okay, so that's welcome to Centerville. So hopefully the walkthrough didn't bog you down, because I kind of just walked through, you can do this with the dice, you can do this with the dice, you can do this with the dice. If you spend a favor token, you can do this with the dice. That explanation is not good. I'm going to tell you that right now, because I've explained the game twice now to different people, and nobody gets it, including myself, until you have that first scoring round. Once you kind of go through the motions a little bit in that first round, you're going to score, and then you're going to get hammered on some stuff. You're going to score more points than you expected on other things, and that's going to happen to everybody. And then the light bulb's going to go off, and everybody's going to be like, oh, okay, now I kind of see what's going on. And what the game does is it kind of lulls you into a sense of just kind of going through the motions, especially when you play that first couple of rounds before you score. What you want to do is you want to go after, you got to be careful though, you want to go after some of those harder to get things. You want to go after the master token that lets you set a die to whatever you want. You want to try to get that media tile to get that extra roll, because it gives you that 4th roll every turn. You want to try to go and flip your status marker, because that doubles your status score every turn. Again, that scores in both wealth and prestige. And then you've got this kind of nice jockeying back and forth, triggering some of the special actions when you get the different political offices, and there's the whole area control thing. And there's, you want to get to the top of the status, because that's going to get you kicked out, which is going to get you favors, which doesn't allow you to be kind of a jerk, because the favor tiles you can cash back in to just kind of screw people over. So the game explanation though, I'm like hesitant. I hope people like get to this part of the video, because that's the rules. I mean, I think I probably missed one of the dice actions that you can do, because there's so many things you can do with the dice, but it's all on the sheet here. I mean, this, like I said, is the whole game. But you got to get it in play, and you got to kind of just experience it, because it seems very vanilla and dry, and it's not. There's a lot of kind of back and forth and stuff. So again, if you were not a fan of Urban Sprawl, I would still give this one a shot. If you liked Urban Sprawl, you're going to see this. Now, there's certain things I certainly miss from Urban Sprawl in here. This is not going to replace Urban Sprawl, and not even close. And I don't think it's trying to or nothing, but there's a couple of us Urban Sprawl fans out there, and there's a lot of things missing. But again, this is probably, I don't think I said the playtime earlier. This says the box 20 minutes per player. I guess I played it with 2 and 4, so that would have been 80 minutes with 4 players, and it was probably about that. But I guarantee you, the next time that we all played it as 4-player, and everybody that I played it with in that 4-player game wanted to play it again, it would go a lot quicker. Because again, once you get to that first scoring round, and you start to click, you start to figure out what's a good idea to do with your dice. But it's not as chaotic as Urban Sprawl. You have a little bit of scoring screwage, kind of like Urban Sprawl has, where you have that kind of last minute thing. So you can get kind of screwed out of the turn order because, you know, maybe the hourglass kicks the time track down and stuff like that. So that stuff could still be in there and bother folks. But it's, I mean, this is probably of a weird bar to set, but it's not as chaotic as Urban Sprawl. If you've not played Urban Sprawl, I love the game, but it can be, there's a lot of events and things that can happen. It's the most SimCity-ish kind of game I've played, because every time I played SimCity, there was like constant fires and stuff. So I thought that was great. This has only got the 4 disasters, and I think I've never seen more than 2 disasters come out. I had one game where almost no disasters came out, and then one came out at the end, and it wasn't even that really impactful. Because even though you have 4 disasters that are almost guaranteed to go into the bag, I would say at least 3 are guaranteed every game to go into the bag for sure, and then most likely 4. But they go in the bag, and you still got to draw them out. So depending on how fast people are going after the Vocation Tiles, you see like once per game. But you still want to fight over that safety thing, because that could swing stuff. But this is definitely the most complicated and sort of in-depth Yahtzee style of game, because this is just a Yahtzee game. You know, roll 3 times, set stuff aside, certain dice you can't roll again. But this is definitely the most interesting of all of those kinds of games. And there's just a lot of, you're just kind of operating on a lot of things. It's almost like a point salad thing. You got a lot of end game points that are out there for you. You've got a lot of the current round points that are there for you. So you can get a huge bonus out of like the parks and the status, because not everything is the area control part of it in the city. That can be a huge part of it. You don't want to be last in that, because then you're losing points, but you don't have to win it. So that's kind of nice too. So you're kind of trying to juggle all this different stuff. So I definitely recommend folks give this a look. If you like heavier games, I would say this is kind of a cool filler-ish. It's still going to take you about an hour, even with 4 players after you played a couple times. But it's still kind of a nice filler heavy game. It's kind of a weird spot. So there is a decent amount of AP. That's the other thing I want to leave you with. Definitely until you've played it once. And definitely through that first scoring round, there's going to be a lot of AP. And I'll say I like it as a 2-player game, I think, better than a 4-player game, because that status track is not as volatile in a 2-player game. You're just kind of trading those 2 spots. Whereas in a 4-player game, you can be at the top, and then by the time it gets back to your turn, you're at the bottom. And it's like, oh, okay. So there's part of that, but that doesn't make me hate it. It's just something you have to know about the status. Is like, let's maybe not count on being status high when I play in 4 players. The AP is going to settle in a little bit more, obviously, with more players. But again, once everybody's into it, don't just go off that first few rounds, then the turns are going to be snappy. They're going to get moving along. So there's going to be AP, but it's definitely going to dissipate. I've seen it definitely dissipate as players play the game more. So yeah, take a look at this one. It's not going to be for everybody, but I think if you give it a shot, a game or 2, then I think there's enough going on and it's very noodly and crunchy, then you're going to get joy out of this. So take a look at it. Thanks.